go. And I see you have, there's still another question. Feel free to put the question in the chat and I'll see if I can integrate it into the conversation as we go. You can close your eyes or look downwards, whatever feels more comfortable for you. Breathing in, I know that I'm breathing in. Breathing out, I know that I'm breathing out. In, out. For the next few breaths, just continue to repeat in as you breathe in and out as you breathe out. And try to follow your breath by noticing how your belly might move as you're breathing in and as you're breathing out. If you find your mind wandering, that's okay. We'll just notice that our mind went somewhere else and slowly bring our attention back to our belly. In, out. I want you to take a moment now. Let your attention wander a little bit and consider the question, what do I want from this next 1 hour of my life? All right, when you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes, come back into the room. Anything that you're wanting, that you feel willing to share, please put it in the chat. I'd like to know what you want from this next 1 hour. I'll do my best to to offer that and support that. One of the things while you're typing, one of the things we will be doing is practicing our elevator pitches. That was a request from one of the folks who came in early and a reminder for me that I said I would have you do that. If you do not have an elevator pitch ready, you can listen to the other person's elevator pitch in the room you're in. If both of you do not have elevator pitches, then you can look it up together online, what it is, in the time you have. You'll only have, I'm going to give you only 2 minutes. So what you'll do in your 2 minutes is the first person, person A, will give their pitch. Remember, your pitches are 30 seconds long. Person B will share what resonated. Just what you thought was interesting, what felt good, just focus on that. You only have 30 seconds to do that. Then person B will share their pitch. And person A will share what resonated. So you have 30 seconds for each part. You only have 2 minutes. Any questions? All right. I hope you enjoy pitching each other. And remember, your elevator pitch is around what you're looking for, or sorry, I should say this. Let's say who you are as a job applicant, as somebody applying to a job. Who are you? And if you're applying to be an Upwork consultant, then the elevator pitch should be that. Well, whatever your focus is right now. All right. I will see you in, actually, I'm going to give you 3 minutes because we'll have some groups of 3. See you in 3 minutes. Hey, Rahel. It looked like you ended up in an empty room. So I'm going to send you into a room for 3 people. You'll have to hit you're on mute right now, but you'll have to hit your breakout room button to go back into that room. Thanks, Amuyu. Does everyone know the notes document we've been using for all these sessions? Does everyone have the link? Okay, great. I see some thumbs. For those of you who have it, hopefully that'll be the place that you can go to constantly to remember the resources we've used. For those of you who don't, I've just put it in the chat, so now you should all have it. I've added 2 more resources. We're not going to talk too much about them today because I want to give as much time for some other things. But essentially, last time we talked about how to do quantity and quality of job hunting. I want you to remember that your networks, your relationships, are going to be one of the best ways that you're going to find good opportunities. And so I want you to think about the same idea of quantity and quality on your relationships and your network connections. So I've given you 2 documents as templates. One document is a template of how you can keep track of all the people you're reaching out to during your networking, right? How you remember who you're talking to and what kind of support you're hoping to ask them for. I hope you add other things to your actual document, including like, what are the names of their kids? And, get to actually know them as people, right? Every person you connect with is actually a person. And the second document I've given you is short messages. I know it can be intimidating to reach out to people you don't know or people you haven't talked to in a long time. And so I want you to use these short messages if you feel intimidated. Make sure to just reach out anyways, right? And then one thing I had shared with somebody is I want to encourage everyone to play the rejection therapy game. Does anyone give me a thumbs up if you've heard about this? Besides Mukali, who I told already. Has anyone else heard about this? Rejection therapy? No? So most of us, or I should say all of us, live in a world where we know a lot of people. And does anyone here think that they've interacted with less than 100 people in their life? Okay, so everyone can say more than 100, right? How about more than 500? Since birth? Definitely, right? Maybe some people are not sure. Brian, what about you? You look like you might not be sure.
No, it's probably more than 500, I think.
More than 500. Great. Can you remember, Brian, I'm going to go back to you. Can you remember 500 people? Mukali can remember 500 people. I saw that. That's impressive. So right now, if Mukali, I asked you just to list 500 names, you could just go through 500 names. Wow. Okay. I cannot do that. All right. So, but I definitely can't. So yeah, that's right, Ken. If they're in the line, you can recognize them, right? Maybe you can recognize them, but you can't remember them off the top of your head, right? So part of what we've been hardwired for, right, is to live in these smaller communities of some people estimate it's 150, it might be 200, it might be 300 people, but we're hardwired to live in communities where enough people know everything you've ever done right or wrong, that if you do something wrong, it'll haunt you forever, right? I want to remind you that if you want to, 2 weeks from now, you could pretend like I don't exist, and it will have no impact on your life other than you'll lose a great friend, because we could be great friends if you didn't do that. But you could pretend that I don't exist and you could go off, right? Same thing with Yabi, same thing with Arun, same thing with a lot of people you could reach out to on LinkedIn. And what that means is 2 things. That means that 1, if you want a relationship, you have to put effort to build it. And 2, that means that if you ask me for something and I say no, and even if I judge you, how dare they ask me, right? Even if I judge you, it has no real impact on you. But chances are you are still going to feel a lot of embarrassment, shame, fear, apprehension to ask me, right? And that's true for anyone you can reach out to on LinkedIn. Now, please don't go and be an asshole. Don't just bother everybody you can. Don't be rude. Try to, again, increase your chances of success. Actually look at the people's profile and think before you ask, right? So be considerate if you can, just to make the world a little bit better. But get past your fear of rejection. This is why I had to say it, Kevin. This is why I had to say it. Kevin says, there goes my plan in the chat. So get past your fear of rejection. And to do that, we play the rejection therapy game. The rejection therapy game is a very simple game. Every single day, you ask somebody for something that you want. And you have not won the game until at least one person says no to you. So if you ask somebody for something you want and they say yes, you still haven't won the game. So you got to keep on asking people for something that you want until someone says no to you. And then you've won the game for the day. Give me a thumbs up if this game makes sense to you. And if you're really, the way to really win this game is to make this a habit. So you actually keep track of how many days in a row that you're winning. If you're doing it for at least a month, this is a chance that the habit is getting stronger. When Muik Ali and I agreed to play this game together, I only successfully did it for one day in a row. But the day I did it, I reached out to a Buddhist monastery that I've been interested in joining and asked them if I could join. And they rejected me, and I won the game for the day. And then they sent me a book that I wanted the name of. I've been looking for the name of this book and I hadn't found it. And they sent me the book without me asking for the book, right? So good things come even during rejection, right? But we often forget that. So this is what Ken saying he'll definitely go to his parents. You can do that. I also think you'll get more benefit, Ken, if you go to outside and you ask people that you're afraid to ask. Okay, so the reason this applies to networking is really that piece, right? Is you go and talk to people that you usually don't talk to. Think about cousins, think about uncles, think about colleagues your classmates, think about your professors. My professors have made some of the most interesting introductions for me. So definitely think about your professors. You'd be surprised by how few professors in 1 year get asked anything from their students. But these are people who have been like the top of their field for a while. These are people who have students who have been in the industry you want to be in for at least 10 years. My first internship at IBM was because of a professor. And he sent an email to 700 students saying, any of you who are interested in a job at IBM, email me back. I was one of 3 students who responded. 3 students responded to that email, right? I've spoken at conferences where I've spoken to 2 audiences of 200 people. I ask them, I give them surveys like I usually give you at the end of these sessions. How did you like it? Do you have any questions, right? I ask them those 2 questions. And I get scores 5 out of 5 from everybody who attended. Maybe I get 1 or 2 1s out of 5s, 1 or 2s 4 out of 5s. But out of the 200, I might get like 155 out of 5s. And I get really interesting questions on the pieces of paper. And I make sure I tell them before I even get to see the paper, right? Because they write on a paper, I collect it afterwards, and then I take it home and I read them. But before I go home, while we're at the conference, I say to them, you have 20 minutes before your next session. Please give me your business card. I will follow up with you, and I can answer any questions I didn't talk about. People ask me such interesting questions on the pieces of paper, but they don't give me their business cards. They never actually get the answers to their questions, you know? I've asked in sessions where I've taught people about networking, where the whole purpose was networking. I asked people to raise their hands if they were going to contact me after the session. So everyone, give me a thumbs up if you're going to contact me after this. I'm giving you my email right now. I'm asking you to contact me in 1 month. Give me a thumbs up if you think you'll contact me in 1 month with a request. I want you to ask me for something in 1 month. Give me a thumbs up if you think you'll do it. All right, I've gotten about a dozen thumbs up maybe. I have asked the same question in a group of 50 students, and I had 0 people contact me. 0, okay? So this is why we play the rejection game. Everyone is so afraid of being rejected. Yeah, David, to be fair, when I asked the students, I asked them if they would come and talk to me right after the session. I already know most of you will hang out for the after party, so I'm not asking that question. But I want to emphasize there's a lot of fear of rejection that's built into a lot of societies. I don't know necessarily all of the cultures you come from, so maybe many of you don't have any fear of rejection, and I'll just get 20 emails. I would love 20 emails, so I have no problem with that. But I want to really encourage this. Try to seek something out every day that you're afraid to ask for, but you actually want. Try to seek that out every day and mark it every single day. Did I do it? Did I not? And good things will come, I promise. All right, so that's the last thing I wanted to share on that. Any thumbs up if that feels good? You feel good on that? Cool. All right, if you've got questions, feel free to come off of mute. You can just ask your questions. If no one has questions, I'm going to start talking about Upwork. All right, so first let me say this. Upwork is a messy place. The internet is a messy place. We know this. How many people here use a consumer rating application? We have Yelp. Anyone here uses Yelp? Give me a thumbs up. No? Do you have anything that like rates how good a local store is, or rates how good, how about like rating your professors? Yeah, Google Maps has ratings on it. So has anyone used the ratings on Google Maps? You check the ratings before you do things? Okay, great. Has anyone looked at those comments? Have you seen the comments that are in the ratings? How good are the comments? Right? Some of the comments seem bizarre sometimes, right? They're not even entertaining. You're like, at least make it entertaining, even if it's going to be inaccurate. Yeah, check for comments before downloading apps. So Upwork is going to have the same kind of feeling sometimes. You're going to see sometimes that people get rated and you don't have a lot of clarity on where the rating came from. Now, I've only used Upwork from a hiring perspective, so that might be helpful for you though. I've hired people from Upwork. I've hired software engineers from Upwork from, I think I was hiring them from like Russia and various Eastern European countries. And the things I was looking at were two things. I already put this in Slack. Has anyone seen this? Does anyone know what I put in Slack? What are the two things I look for? Oh, you're not reading our channel. Yeah, Nahom.
So is someone cheap, and does he have good ratings?
That's right. Cheap in ratings. So why am I doing cheap in ratings? Nahom, if you want to answer that too, go for it.
So of course, you don't want to spend more on somebody. Of course, that's the only reason. But you know, as countered by Samuel, he also has a good counter to that. I mean, if you charge them a higher rate, it shows that you're confident in your work and it shows more value. But those two need to, you know, balance out. But I think you don't want to spend more on anybody as well.
Yeah. So for me, it's actually not about the cost. The reason why we'll pay a higher rate for somebody who has a higher pricing is not just about their confidence. It's a sense in us that they're worth something, right? That society as a whole has judged them. So it's their confidence that lets them put the higher rating. But what I'm understanding as a buyer, as a person who's hiring a contractor or hiring from someone from Upwork, is I'm understanding that they're actually worth more. And that's what the market priced them at. But if I see that you have 0 ratings, that you've worked with 0 customers and you have a high rating, now that just looks foolish, right? So what ends up happening for me when I look at somebody with 0 ratings, the cost is such a high factor because what I'm looking for is a trial. I'm going to hire you to see if you're worth working with. I'm paying 50 bucks, 100 bucks, 1,000 bucks, whatever I'm paying, I'm going to pay just to find out, can I work with you? The people I hired in Russia, I did the same thing. And lo and behold, I had a bad experience with them, right? And so I didn't feel that bad about wasting my money because I knew going into it, I was trying them out. That makes sense? Then I hired an engineer or an electrician locally to help me fix a packaging machine, a very complex industrial machine for the food business I was running. For that one, we hired somebody who had about 50 or 70 ratings and charged about 50% more than the average charge, the average rate. But they had a really high rating. So it was very simple for us. And they were available on the day we wanted them because we wanted them urgently. So that one was easy, right? Happy to pay more for that. So when you're starting, I really want you to all think about how, if you're going to be on Upwork and you're really serious about it, you need to think about how you can get some ratings early and quickly. Now, I don't know Upwork. I know Upwork has been around. I hired these people back in 2015, I think. So it's been about 5 years since I've used Upwork. And so things might have changed. But at the time when I did it, when I used Upwork, you couldn't tell if the person you hired had worked on the type of job you're trying to hire them for without spending some energy researching it. I went through and read all the reviews, but it took a while. And there's definitely going to be a time where I would hire people without reading all of the different kinds of jobs they did. So and I realized that I even was willing to work with somebody who, yeah, Gerald, when I went through, Gerald's asking if I looked at the client testimonials and if I checked those. Yes, I read everything on there before I hired people. On Upwork, when you're looking at somebody's information in their bio, it can take a while to get clear on what they worked on. And it's much easier just to see their overall rating. And in fact, when we put up a job, there's like 20 or 30 immediately people are going to respond to the post. And so unlike with like LinkedIn networking and other kinds of networking, people are receiving way too many messages. So it's very different from the advice I gave you on the networking side. On the Upwork side, you have to do something to stand out very quickly. And you have to keep that right in the top of mind. The thing I was looking at when I would go and read through all the client testimonials and all the ratings, I was looking at the number of ratings they had and the overall score. So I was looking at that, and I was looking at the cost, right? So those are the two things I'm looking at. If you can get like 5 or 10 jobs at the lowest cost on Upwork, and you can have a perfect rating for those jobs, then you're going to seem much more interesting for the jobs you actually want. People are actually going to pay attention to you. If you start your rate lower, start at $3 and work your way up. I think $3 is the bare minimum, and you work your way up, you're going to seem much more interesting to the people who you want to work for. So that is the strategy I would take right now if I were going to start working on Upwork. Second thing is the strategy I did take when I started doing consulting. I went on Upwork, I posted my profile, and I was applying to these jobs. 20 or 30 people were applying within the first like 2 hours. So I knew that the customers weren't going to see my application. And then I started calling my friends who I knew were already working in consulting. And one of my friends said, "Hey, I remember you really well. You're smart. We're friends. I'll hire you right now." And that was how I got my first job. So again, if you want to do consulting, you want to do contracting, use that network. The networking is going to get you a lot more positions. Same thing for the project I'm working on right now, the one I've been telling you about. I knew that because of a community I was participating in. I was on a community forum. So make sure you're on different community forums. Now, this community forum was about social justice, and somebody said, "We're looking for hiring somebody who knows analytics." So I was like, great. So make sure you're in your communities. That's another big part of how you have your relationships, your networks. Be involved. The final thing I'll say on this is that when you're, let me take a second. Think about this. One of the underutilized ways of getting projects and positions is offering to support somebody who already has a project. IBM taught me how to do this. All the big consulting companies will teach you how to do this, but most people who are independent never learn how to do this. My first big client where we earned in total, I think like $120,000, and I earned something like $70,000. My first big client, I went and talked to somebody who was running a conference. I reached out to him, and I expected to get rejected. And I asked him if I could come and volunteer to help him with his conference. And then at his conference, I had tried to stay in touch with him, sent him many emails, sent him many text messages. He had given me his business card. It took me about 7 or 8 messages before he responded to me. He said I couldn't volunteer for his conference, but I could come for free. So I came to his conference for free. At his conference, I brought him a gift. And then it took me another 4 or 5 messages to get a hold of him again. And I told him I wanted to work with him on a project. And I mentioned it at the conference, and I mentioned it again when I followed up with him. And he said, okay, I've got an idea. There's somebody who you met at the conference who wants me to work with them. If you want to do some of the work, we can do this together. So now, by the time I'd reached him, I've already been working in the field for about 3 or 4 years. So I knew what I was doing. You don't need to reach out to somebody at a conference. But one trick you can use that I actually did when I first started applying to Upwork is go and look at the people who are winning the projects. The people have 100 projects under their belts in the kind of work you want to do, and message them. Can I work with you on one of your projects? A lot of those people, what they do is they have one person who sits on Upwork as the salesperson. And this person is going to message a bunch. And then they have a team of 5, 10, 50 people in the back who actually do the work. So if you message someone like that, they already work with a team of people. They might be interested in having you get involved, right? So that's one idea. Don't just use Upwork. Again, go to your university, go to your professor, ask them, who do you know who's in my industry? Who do you know who's in data science, who's in business intelligence, who's in statistics? Who do you know who's in marketing analytics, who's in finance analytics, who's in supply chain analytics, process analytics? Go and understand those things. Go to the business side of your school, of your university. You might be in computer science. You might be in some kind of engineering program. Go to the business school. Ask the business school, what resources do you have for people who want to be in analytics, in business intelligence? Data science might be a too fancy word for them. They might think data science is only statisticians and complex machine learning. So you say business intelligence, right? You might say process analyst. You say supply chain analytics. You say finance analytics, marketing analytics. These are terms that have been used in the business world for decades, way before data science was used. So go and ask them, what kind of connections can you give me? Have I told you all about how I brought like IBM and Apple and Intel to hire students at my university? Have I shared the story with you? Okay, Muikali has heard it. A few of you have heard it. Okay, I see the yes, all right, in the chats. So for those of you who haven't heard it, go check the recordings. You'll hear that story. One thing I'll mention that I didn't mention before is that many of the introductions, the first contact I got to those companies were given to me by people at the business school. I did not take any classes at the business school. I was not in the business school. I was in the computer science school, but I made relationships with the head of entrepreneurship. I made relationships with the head of organization design. All the people who taught these different things at the school. So they knew me really well. And when they would meet with computer science professors, my name would come up. They would talk about me. This is a big part of networking, is that you build those relationships so people get to know you in whatever environment you're in, right? And that amplifies your brand. That gets people to really get to know you. And then the introductions come very easily. They trust you. You have that relationship. In that environment, it is very much like the small village. If you insult people, if you say something stupid or wrong, people will remember that. But also remember, if you're kind about how you make your requests, chances are, if you're considerate, chances are people will appreciate that and remember that as well. I've had a lot of people say to me, I can't help you right now. I'm sorry, Idris. And then email me a week later saying, hey, I remember you asked me for something. Somebody just talked to me about it and I remembered you asking me. So here you go, here's the contact. So just make sure to be considerate when you're making your requests. Okay, we got 10 minutes left. What do you want to talk about for our last 10 minutes? You're all good? You learned everything you can ever need to learn from me? The pitches, imposter syndrome. Ida, why don't you go first because you typed first. What do you want to know about the pitches? Anyone else has questions while we're talking, please type them in the chat. The general structure of the pitch. Okay, great. I'm seeing a few questions around the imposter syndrome and then the general structure of the pitch and what does a good pitch look like or sound like. So you'll have this on recording now. So if I'm talking to, right now, I'm putting myself out there as a diversity analytics professional. So if I'm going to pitch myself, the way I would do that is I would say, I'm going to structure my pitch first by saying, what is the general thing I do? I'm assuming I'm talking to someone I don't know, right? So always think about your audience. You should have a few different pitches based on who your audience is. But first, I'm going to give you the pitch I give to someone who doesn't know me and I don't know them. I don't know what they're about, what they're doing. I'm going to start, Stephanie offers a few questions. I would say that those questions are good for a longer email where you have 3 paragraphs, who you are, what you do, value proposition. They're not as good for an elevator pitch, which is really about 2 or 3 sentences. So in the 2 or 3 sentences, it's going to be a broad reference to what I do. It's going to be a short explanation of why and like what that is, and then a short line on why that's interesting. So just 2 or 3 lines, right? Hi, my name is Idris Merchant. Nice to meet you. I do diversity analytics. And essentially what that is I help companies figure out, using data science and statistics, how they can have really powerful, diverse workforces. And often companies who work with me get their employees to really enjoy being at the company they work at. And so everyone's just way more productive. So now that's enough of a teaser, right? Everyone's way more productive. So anyone I've talked to is like, okay, I'm interested. Does that resonate for people? Give me a thumbs up if that's, oh, actually, where's Ida? Ida, is that helpful?
Yeah, it is.
Okay. Do you want to try your pitch? Okay, good. Does anyone want to give their pitch to everybody and have me critique it? Emmanuel, if you volunteer someone else, then you're going to have to give your pitch. Emmanuel, you're on the spot, my friend. And then Rahel. Emmanuel and then Rahel. All right. Okay, if you don't want to give your pitch.
Okay, let me try.
Good, Emmanuel. Good.
Okay.
Go for it.
This is something very risky I'm doing, but let me try. Okay.
Good.
My name is Emmanuel, and I do data science. What I do basically in data science is I try to help companies build models that can correctly make correct predictions for them help them make better predictions in maybe the future of their company on particular sales or any other thing. I'm not still perfect with it. That's basically what I can say for now. Thank you.
All right, great. So Emmanuel, are you ready for the critique?
Yes, I am.
Okay. So often what happens when we're not feeling confident or we're feeling vulnerable is our voice will get softer and quieter. And so that the people we're talking to can't hear us, right? And we might even mumble a little bit. I'm talking like this. You don't quite understand what they're saying. So if you're nervous about your pitch, you need to practice it. Otherwise, when you really need to share it with somebody, it's going to be hard to hear. Emmanuel, it was really hard for me to actually hear your pitch. So especially towards the end there. So in the beginning, I heard you a little bit better when you said your name. You're very used to saying your name. But when you started getting to the end, I couldn't really hear you that well. So make sure you're very clear as you talk. I see the battle taking place in the chat. I'm going to keep critiquing Emmanuel's pitch. I'll give you one more piece of, one thing I'll just say that's hard to do in this environment is you're practicing your pitch without having a clear audience. So when you should actually practice giving your pitch to people and like expect that the first 5 times you give your pitch, it's going to go badly. But you need to actually practice it because you'll have to change it every time you talk to somebody. If you talk to a professor who knows what data science is, you're not you're not explaining to them what data science is. You're just explaining to them how good you think you are or what you want to start with, stuff like that. I'm going to continue to ignore the demands in the chat. This is a volunteer-only environment. If people want to volunteer themselves, they're welcome to. Yeah, otherwise I'm going to keep going. I'm going to talk about imposter syndrome really quickly. Ida, Emmanuel, do you have any more questions on pitches before I talk about imposter syndrome? Okay.
Perfect. No problem. Two questions.
Okay, good. So 5 weeks ago, I had imposter syndrome. Can somebody guess where I had it? Good guess, Ken. The project I got? Nope. Meditation job? Nope. Yes, Biniam got it. 5 weeks ago, 5 or 6 weeks ago was my first session with all of you. I was talking so fast. I was so nervous. I think I was sweating. I get imposter syndrome all the time. We all do. I am lucky because the way I was raised, I was forced to act confident all the time. And both my parents act confident when they're not confident. So even when I'm feeling anxious, other people can't always tell. So I'm sort of lucky. It also has a downside to it. Sometimes I look confident when I'm not. And then people get upset with me when things go differently than I was expecting. And I'm like, I wasn't expecting it to go well. And I said, but you were confident. I wasn't confident. You just thought I was confident. So it has a bad side to it. Also, when I'm anxious, I do a worse job. So I'm less grounded. I have a harder time remembering what I want to say. And yes, Jeanette's asking, is it having fear of starting a job or being hired normal? 100%. It is absolutely normal. Right now, I'm building up a new kind of teaching practice. I'm teaching nonviolent communication. And I have the same fear. All of my students have told me that 9 out of 10, I'm a great teacher. And even the students I thought didn't like me, I emailed them, what didn't you like? And they said, oh no, I loved you. I actually stopped coming to classes because my schedule changed and I wanted you to know that. And I forgot to email you. And I'm feeling scared to have a lot of students come to my classes. So just the idea of having success is being afraid of that is very, very common. You are in good company if you have that fear. So do not feel bad about that. So a lot of people talk about overcoming the fear. My favorite advice on how to engage with fear is the way out of your fear is going into it. So instead of trying to suppress it, instead of trying to crush it, instead of trying to push it aside, take time with it. Take time, sit down, write down, I am afraid, and then write down what comes next. I am afraid that, and finish that sentence and write that sentence out 100 times. What are you afraid of? Get really, really clear. What are you afraid of? When you can be very explicit about what your fear is, it doesn't feel like this enormous thing anymore. The thing that makes fear so powerful, it's the same thing with greed as well. What can make both greed and fear powerful is that we have an idea in our heads that is not very clear. It's this amorphous thing. And if it's amorphous, then it can be enormous. And we have no idea what it can be. And so it becomes infinite. And if it's infinite, then it is the most powerful thing in the universe all of a sudden. But if you name it and it's specific, then it's finite. And if it's finite, it can have value, but it has a limited amount of value. So some of the fears I have is that right now my students like me, very soon they won't like me, right? That's a fear I have. But when I write that down, I say, okay, right now I have 5 students in my communication class. If I have 50, maybe 10 of them will have a bad experience. But when I write that down, I can realize that, well, 40 of them might have a great experience. And then I'll be able to teach, because with 5 students, I can't teach forever. But if I have 50 students, I might be able to do this for the rest of my life. So that's one thing that I realized very quickly when I think about that. Actually, when I say it out loud to you. And the same thing is, you know, if I write down, oh, some of my students will hate me. Maybe all of my students will hate me. I'm afraid that all students will hate me. Well, I know that what I would do if all my students hate me is I would change the experience. I would just keep experimenting until I get it right. So when you sit down and you write out your fear, some of your fears might be about getting the job. I'm going to be bad at the job. My boss is going to insult me. My very first job I'm going to fail at. I'll never get a second job, right? You write those things down, and the first thing you realize about the boss hating you, well, you know, sometimes people like me, sometimes people hate me. I also know what I can do to get someone to like me. I know how to make people happy. So I have some opportunities, and also it's not fully in my control, and that's okay. I might not give another fear. I might not get a second job, a second chance. Well, when you applied for this job, this boss didn't know what failures you'd had in the past anyways. So when you apply for the second job, they're not going to really understand what your failures are. You even have the option. Just so if you have to leave within a few weeks or a month, you have the option of saying, of leaving that off your resume, of not including that first job on your resume. Now, you don't want to have huge gaps on your resume, but even then, everyone's had failures. So every single fear you have, if you actually sit down and write it out, it's very easy to address it. But if you don't write it out, it's hard to address. So that's the last thing I'll say on that. Jeanette, how does that feel? How do you feel about hearing that? All right. Good enough. We should move on. Sounds good.
Maybe, can I have a minute?
Yes. Actually, let me check my calendar. I said I was going to end right now at the end of the hour, but let me see. Maybe I can go a little bit longer.
No, I think I just wanted to give my elevator pitch. If it's
Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. Do people still want to hear Nahom's elevator pitch? Give a thumbs up if you still want to hear it. All right.
So I'm not sure if it's good enough, but I had the chance to use it on Thursday. I had the chance to represent an academy on somehow a big event here in Ethiopia, an event hosted by our telecom company, the only telecom company in Ethiopia. So I had to use it in the networking session there. So here we go. So my name is Nahom Nuguse, and I'm one of the very few data scientists in Ethiopia. Data science is a field that helps people make the right decisions that they otherwise wouldn't have. So I've worked on many real life projects that convert data into insights. So I also would like to apply my data science skills to help companies as yours, because I've looked at your company and I've observed some gaps which can be filled with data science. So I would like a way to connect with you. Thank you.
Great. Wonderful. Nahom, do you want to critique?
Yeah.
So first, I'm going to give you 80% out of 100. If you change nothing, you could keep doing that same introduction and it'll be good. Yeah, Emmanuel, absolutely. His voice was consistent. Emmanuel, that says to me that he's given that elevator pitch. I believe that he actually used it when he was at that event because his voice was consistent.
Yeah, it was in Amharic and it was much easier.
The one thing I'll actually warn you, Nahom, and this is for everyone now, when you give your elevator pitch too much, it can lose the energy and the excitement and the enthusiasm. So make sure to keep the enthusiasm. One way I like to keep the enthusiasm is I think, how do I want them to feel? What emotion do I want this person to have when they hear me share about this, right? So you want to try to see what emotion can I evoke from them? That's a good way to think about it as you're trying to keep your enthusiasm. So I would, on the voice part, try to stay enthusiastic. Try to connect with your enthusiasm. Nahom, you did a good job of not explaining too much about what data science is. You just explained what the purpose is. So everyone avoid trying to explain the details of how data science works. Explain the purpose, the value. They will ask you a follow-up question if they want to know how it works. The goal of the elevator pitch is just to get the hook. You just want them interested. So you don't explain how it works, you explain the value. That's it. So that, you did a great job there too, Nahom. Let's see, there was the elevator pitch is a little bit on the longer side than I'd like. You hit about 4 or 5 sentences. So I might cut out 1 or 2 sentences. I think you had 2 different sentences explaining how data science, like the value of it. So the first sentence I think was better. And the second one I would almost just leave out. Helps people make better decisions. I think you're good, you know? You might say using data. Helps people make better decisions using data. And you combine 2 sentences in that. So a good way to notice that kind of thing is just to write it down. Everyone should move to Ethiopia, as Ida is saying. Yes. You have to also remember supply and demand. Is there a demand for data scientists? One thing you have to remember. And then whenever you're talking about anything about collaborating with somebody else, you want to make sure that you're keeping it positive. So instead of saying, I've noticed a gap, I would say I've noticed an opportunity. It's really the same thing from 2 different perspectives, right? But you really want to make sure you're keeping it positive. All right, great job. Honestly, Nahom, if you changed nothing, it's an 80 out of 100, more than good enough to keep using. So that was good. All right, everybody. Is that it? Are we? Oh wait, no. There was another question. Hilakura asked a question, a follow-up on Stephanie's. If you have little prior knowledge on software, how will you answer the question on if you know the software? How can we balance being too overconfident and being shy? Okay, I want somebody to answer this for me. Does anyone remember what I said about speaking out loud about the answer? Kevin, I haven't heard your voice a lot today. Do you feel like you can cover that one?
No, I'm not too confident about it.
You're not too confident about it? That's okay. Let's see. Is anyone confident about how to? I think maybe was it John? I think John, you had asked that question.
Idris, can I try?
Yeah. Who? Let's see. I'm not seeing Gerald. Yeah, go for it.
So as I recall, the last time you gave us an example, it's linear regression. So it was like, I don't know what linear regression is, but I know the meaning of the word linear and the meaning of the word regression. So like, it was just to build that. So I'll start like, if they ask me what linear regression is, I'd start like, since regression is the prediction of values, so I'd assume you're using linear equations, and that's how I don't fully understand it well, but I suppose this is what it actually means.
Yeah, great. So yeah, do you want to add any more?
Using no.
Okay.
I don't.
Sorry, I think the connection might have cut out a little bit, so it got a little. The sound was hard to hear. Joe, do you want to say that last sentence one more time?
My net is not that stable, so it's like I'd start this way. I'm not conversant with linear regression, but if I try, I think it means predicting values and maybe linear something. If given an opportunity, I believe I can learn and use something like that.
Yeah, great. So I just want to remind everyone, Stephanie, this is actually the same question for me. If I get something I'm exposed to, say somebody asks me about Heroku, which is a development platform, or asks me about, yeah, anything I have some, like SAS actually is a good one. SAS, the statistics analysis platform. I can say, I've not used SAS. I've used R. I've also used a lot of business intelligence software in the past. And I know a variety of statistical methods and methodologies. And I'm very comfortable learning enterprise software. So I've not used SAS itself, but having looked at some of the videos online, I feel pretty comfortable about it. So I can sort of talk about my understanding or thinking of it. So in your case, Stephanie, you could say I've actually attended a work session where somebody explained how the software works. I've not used it myself yet. And the things I have used, which are very similar based on my experience, and then you name some of the things you've used that are similar, and you talk about what you've done with those things. So you end up communicating two things, both your honesty and your capacity to think critically, because you're able to connect whatever is being asked to other things that you already know. So that's a demonstration of your actual intellectual capacity, right? Often it comes off a lot better than just saying, yeah, I know it. Stephanie Ilokoro, is that helpful?
Yes, yes, yes.
Great. Okay, see a thumbs up. All right. Okay, I guess, yeah. So we're gonna go for another 15 minutes. If anyone wants to leave now, you can feel free to leave. You don't have to say. We'll go for another 15 minutes and then we'll wrap up in 15. And I see some of you are smiling because you know that I actually will probably stay for another 5 hours, given the trend. I'm seeing some questions about cover letters, Upwork proposals. There are a lot of templates online for these things. So I want to encourage you to look up some of the templates. I do have some templates that I like better than others, but honestly, I would look at the templates. You'll find some good stuff. I actually want to talk about something else. You're all data scientists, right? So anyone here know how Bayes' theorem works? Have we talked about Bayes' theorem yet?
Just a bit on our first week.
Did we figure out how to apply it now?
Forget on applying it. Applying it on what?
Just every day.
Yeah, we have.
Okay, cool. I see Ida saying that we actually talked about it twice. Ida, Nahom, can either of you talk about how to use Bayes' theorem when you're thinking about cover letters, job applications, interviews? How would you use Bayes' theorem?
What? It does not connect at all.
Okay. How about expected value?
I think it's a bit of thinking much.
It requires some thinking for you right now? Is that what you said, or you said it's thinking too much about it?
Yeah, come again.
Oh, it's cutting out. Do you have any thoughts on this? Does anyone have any thoughts? How would you apply expected value to your job applications? Nice. Stephanie, I love that. Prior knowledge, Stephanie says, prior knowledge on the job description helps you tailor your CV to suit the job. Yeah, that's a good way to think about, that's one good way to think about prior knowledge. Bayes' theorem uses statistics though. Stephanie, help me with the statistics. How does the statistics play a part in that example?
I'm not quite sure about that. Let me think.
By the way, this is an interview question I have asked.
And they didn't get the job, is that right?
Yes, Emmanuel, I like that. You can use what is working from the people who are working in the company you want to apply it to. Absolutely. Emmanuel, if you can bring in the statistics, the same request I have.
Okay, I will say you should try both options and see which actually produce a better result for you. That's what I would say. Try without looking for someone to refer you, or without looking for help before you go, and then look for help and see which of them really produce a better result for you. I think that would be a statistic.
Great. Yeah.
Maybe choose which of us.
Great. Yeah. So you started bringing some of your knowledge of A/B testing to think about how you would apply this, and that's perfect. That is great. So Bayes' theorem essentially says that we have an estimated prior, we have a prior estimation on the likelihood of an event taking place. Let's say the event is that I get an interview, right? So given that I applied to a job, what is the likelihood that I get an interview? Everyone following me so far? Give me a thumbs up if you're following. So now I might say to myself that my current estimation is 50% chance. If I apply to an interview, there's a 50% chance that I will actually get the interview. If I apply to a job, there's a 50% chance I'll actually get the interview. And so I apply to 4 jobs and I get 1 interview. And so now I need to update my prior. Everyone following along on this example? So my prior was 50%. Now what should my new prior be? Yeah, it's probably going to be 25%. Exactly. Kevin put that in the chat. So now, if I'm taking myself through a hiring process where I have to apply to a job, after applying to the job, I have to get an interview. After getting the interview, I have to be selected maybe for a second round of interviews. After getting a second round of interviews, then I have to get an offer. And then after getting the offer, and then let's just say it stops at the offer, right? So there's 3 or 4 steps. For each step along the way, I can make some predictions, some estimations, and those are my priors on the likelihood of success to move to the next stage. So for each step of the way, I have these predictions. And I might structure my predictions around how I do my application process. So the likelihood, I might say that the likelihood of getting an interview if I do not submit a cover letter is 1 out of 10, 10%. The likelihood of getting an interview if I submit a cover letter is maybe 1 out of 5, double the chance. But the cost of submitting a cover letter might be 2 hours. And so I might say, well, if I can apply to 10 jobs in 2 hours, then the cost of the cover letter is too high. But then I might do some math and realize that my cover letters, I can reuse them. So my first cover letter cost me 2 hours, but my second cover letter cost me 30 minutes. And then I might realize that if I do 5 cover letters, I get fast at reusing them. So my first cover letter cost me 1 hour, my second cost me 30 minutes, and the rest of them cost me 15 minutes. And so then I go back and I look at my estimation of the likelihood of getting a job with a cover letter versus without a cover letter. And I can see that the difference the expected value, the increase in the expected value of getting interviews with the cover letter, the increase in the expected value of getting interviews with the cover letter is justified by spending an extra 3 hours on the next 8 applications. So I've done an expected value calculation to see how I increase my likelihood of getting what I want, given changing the inputs. How many of you are confused? Give me a thumbs up if you're confused by what I've just done. Yay, got some honest people in the room. So this is process analysis, right? This is a big part of data science. If you are struggling to follow the way I've talked about it just now, that's a good sign for you, right? It's a good sign that there's an opportunity for you to learn something that's really helpful in data science. Rafaya, the short answer is that I use this process to do my time management. When I'm most grounded, right? When I'm not thinking and I'm not grounded, then I do it like everybody else. I just do whatever comes first. But when I'm taking the time to think, I would use a process like this. What do I want to spend my time on? What's going to give me the most value? Is going to help me out the most? And then I think a little bit. How likely is it that I'll be successful? Give me a thumbs up if you remember the Murphy Jitsu. Got one? Got a few? All right, great. If you don't remember Murphy Jitsu, go and check out some of the first recordings. I think it was maybe like the first or second week we did it. And I think there's a write-up somewhere in the notes document. How many of you remember the surprise-o-meter, which is the first part of Murphy Jitsu? How surprised am I? Great. So I asked myself the same thing when I tried to figure out my predictions. How surprised would I be if I did not get an interview? I'm going to submit this application with the cover letter. How surprised would I be if I did not get an interview? If the answer is that you are 10 out of 10 surprised that you did not get the interview, that means you are 100% confident. You are 100% confident that with the cover letter, you should get an interview. If you're that confident, call me and I will convince you to be less confident. If you are 1 out of 10 surprised or 0 out of 10 surprised, that means you are absolutely certain that you will not get the interview. If you're 0 out of 10 surprised, then you are certain that you would not get the interview. If you are 5 out of 10 surprised, it's like flipping a coin. I could get it, I might not get it. That is your prior. Before you actually have data, you're using that surprise-o-meter to name your prior. Once you've applied to 10 jobs, you should have a statistically backed, you have evidence, you have some evidence, right? It's not a great N, but it's some evidence. Use whatever data you have. That's your new prior. Keep track of your data. I've applied to 50 jobs. I've gotten 5 interviews. Great. I now know the rate. I know the rate at which I get interviews from applications. If out of 5 interviews, I get only 1 second interview, I know the rate of which I get second interviews. If I assume, if my prior, so I don't have a prior for how I get offers because I haven't gotten an offer yet, but I know that the rate from the first interview to the second interview is 5 to 1, 20%. So I'm going to assume the same rate from the second interview to the offer. Maybe a lower rate. I'm going to assume 15%. So now I can do an expected value calculation working backwards to figure out how to get my 1 or 2 job offers, right? Let's say I want 2 job offers. So that means I need, let's see, how many, okay, someone help me with the math. 2 would need, how many second interviews would I need for 2 job offers? I need close to about I want to say like 17, something like that. No, I need 14. Let's call it about 14, rounding up. If I want to get from, so I need 14-second interviews. If I want 14-second interviews, then how many first interviews do I need? Someone else do the math? Does anyone know how I got the 14, by the way? No one knows how I'm getting the 14. My friends, come on, you've just gone through the boot camp. You know data science. I believe in you. You can do this. All right. So does everyone know the expected value calculation? No? All right. This is the basic formula. Everyone see that in the chat? So number of instances equals number, in my case, the number of instances I'm tracking is jobs, job applications rather. Oh, actually, to be accurate, the one I was doing just now was first interviews. So first interviews, and so essentially it's number of first interviews times likelihood to make it to next round equal number of times in the next round. And then the other one was number of second interviews times likelihood to get an offer equals number of offers. And so how many offers do I want you to have? Oh my goodness, I started talking about math and everyone goes quiet. This is exactly the opposite of what I expected. Thank you, Wamuyu. Actually, let me hear from somebody. Can somebody come off mute and tell me that you want me to keep going? If you don't want me to explain this, I will not explain this anymore.
We want you to keep going, Idris.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
We're cheering for you.
Yeah, cheering for me. Tell me one thing, one reason why this is helpful for you.
It helps us manage our expectations on what job to apply and when we apply that to that particular job. Okay,
great. So this will help you manage your expectations. Why is it important for you to manage your expectations?
For a big part is being grounded and being realistic, not to overshoot and not to be disappointed when you don't get a particular chance, something like that. Yeah. Mental health, basically.
Yes, but more important, mental health actually is the most important piece for me. But what you might think is important, I want you to remember, is to stay motivated. If you're not in touch with the likelihood of success and you overestimate your likelihood of success, the minute you hit too much failure, you'll quit. I want you to stay motivated and stay clear, right? Also, this is an exercise of data scientists. If you don't know data science, if you don't know how to do this in your first jobs, you're going to say a lot of stupid things to your managers. I don't want you to say stupid things to your managers as much as we can avoid. At the end of the day, all of us say stupid things all the time, so it'll happen. But as much as we can avoid it, I'm going to try to help you avoid it. So, okay, we'll do this. I want to show you the math of how I came to the number of offers. So I want to figure out the number of interviews is what I'm trying to figure out, right? So essentially what I said, and I said that I wanted all of you to get 2 offers. Wamuyu, why do I want everyone to get 2 offers?
I think it's to have choice.
Absolutely, I want you to have choice. I also want you to be able to negotiate. If you have 2 offers, you can tell both companies here's what the other company is offering me. And now both companies are competing for you. So I want you to be able to have that opportunity to negotiate, get a higher salary. All right, so number of second interviews, we said, times the, you know what, actually, I'm gonna switch over to Google Documents so you can see me type and it's a little bit more effective. If you're not in the Google document, here is the link. And here's my equation. And if somebody wouldn't mind, you can add some of the notes we've been talking about underneath where I'm typing. That'd be really great as I type this up. And so I said, I'm just making up a number based on my surprise-o-meter. I'm saying I'm about 15% confident I would succeed. So if I'm 15, actually, let's make it simpler. Let's just keep it at 20%. So if I'm 20% confident that I'm going to succeed, does everyone know how to solve for this number? I see a nod from Kevin. Kevin, actually, does anyone else, before Kevin answers, anyone else who hasn't chatted in a little bit, who hasn't shared in a little bit, want to take the chance to answer this question? Kevin's the only one that knows how to solve for this? Y'all, I'm really worried. Thank you, Ken. Thank you very much. Yes, we divide. What do we divide, Ken? Yeah, great. We divide the two offers by 20%. And that'll give us, why does that seem wrong to me? Okay, there we go, yeah. It gives us 10. So if we have a 20% chance of going from the second interview to an offer, then that means we need 10 second interviews to get 2 offers. Give me a thumbs up. Does that work for everybody? Ken and Wumuyu are with me. Who else is understanding this math so far? All right, great. Janet is understood. Nahom, I see your video and I haven't seen you nod yet, so I'm curious, is this resonating for you? Can you come off mute for us?
Yes, yes.
Okay, it's resonating or not resonating?
No, not so much.
Not
of
so
course,
much.
partially.
Partially. Is the math making sense to you?
I would say partially again.
Partially, okay. So, and are you able to see the Google document?
Yes.
Okay, so essentially what we're gonna do to isolate this, essentially what we wanna do in this kind of equation is we're gonna isolate this variable. And to isolate the variable, we'll divide both sides by 20%. 20%, another way of writing 20% is 20 out of 100, which can be written as 0.2. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes.
And then so basically what I do is I rewrite this equation as number of second interviews as a variable. You can almost think of this as x. Like this is typical algebra, you know? So I'm calling this x. And so now I'm dividing both sides by 0.2. And really I want to keep, yeah, let's just keep it like that for a second. And then once I've done my division, on this side, this will just drop out because these are equivalent. And then 2 divided by 0.2 is 10.
Yes.
Does that feel a little bit more settled, a little bit more obvious?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, great. So what I've done then is I realized that I need 10 second interviews. And maybe if I keep it all on the correct sides, it'll be easier to follow. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. Great. Thank you for letting us know that it wasn't making sense before. Hopefully it makes sense for more people. Ilakuro, you need to be in the Google document. So the Google document is in the chat. And you might need to scroll down as well. You'll see we're under week 12 under notes. All right, yeah, this is, yeah, I'm already going past my 15 minutes, but this is actually probably one of the most important things to me that you all are able to do, is that you're able to do this kind of math for yourselves. One of the most valuable pieces of data science for me is us being able to talk about what we actually can expect reality to look like. When you're in most organizations, the answers they come up with on what their goals are and how they're coming up with their estimates are crazy, are absolutely crazy. And it's our jobs as data scientists to try to bring some sense of data and logic into how we make estimations on the quantitative side. The intuitions are often very well informed, and there's reasons. But when they start to come up with specific numbers, they start to get away from their intuition, and they come up with answers that don't really match their intuition, but they can't see that. So us really being able to do this kind of work really helps take all these experts that we're going to be working with and help use their expertise in a way that's actually applicable, rather than how they would try to without using data science. So really important that you know how to do this. Okay, so everyone understands that we want 10 interviews if the likelihood is 20%. A likelihood to get an offer is 20% from the second interview. Okay, great. I see at least one thumb. If anyone's having any questions, please come off mute and let me know. Otherwise, you're not going to get this, and that's a sad thing. So I really would rather go slow and take more time and make sure everyone gets it. So please do come off mute. All right. So if I now have 10 second interviews, let me give you a bunch of my percentages, and let me give you my full equation. So I basically said the process looks like.
Hello?
Oh, yeah. Someone coming off mute with a question?
Okay. Sorry. Yeah, I've seen the equation. So what if you have like 3 of us? What if it's not 2?
What if there's 3 of you?
3 of us. 3 of us. What if it's not just 2? Hello?
3 interviews, 3 rounds of interviews. Sorry, I heard, I'm not hearing what the three items are. Did someone else hear it? Could someone else tell me what you heard? 3 offers. Yeah, 3 offers are great. More than 2 is great. Anything higher than 1 is what I want for you. And you can do the exact same thing. I have 2 offers from 2 other companies, you know? So I would worry more about, did you get at least 1 offer? I would worry less about, did I get too many? Focus on at least getting 1, you know? Okay. Can everyone see the process? All right, great. So now so basically what we just mapped out is from step C to D, we need 10 items of C, right? So now going from B to C, actually, so we said we want 2 items of D, step C to D, need 10 items of C to get D, step B to C. How many do we need?
What is a percentage?
Thank you. And let's say, so this percentage we said was 20%. Let's say it's the same thing. Let's just say it's 20%. So can someone tell me for this step, how many do we need? How many items of B do we need?
50.
50. Great. How did you get that answer?
10 times 100 over 20. So 10 over 0.2. No, yeah.
10 over 0.2?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, great. I don't know why that was not making sense in my head. Okay, great. Yes, we need 50. And then how many do we need for the next one?
$1K, 1,000.
So then we need 1,000. So does that seem like a reasonable number to everybody? Do you think 1,000 is the right answer on how many you'll need for an offer?
No.
No. Yeah, 1,000 sounds high for me. What about you, Ken?
It's really high. I'd rather go study even in school. Nothing else. Just stay jobless.
Again, I'm not saying I'm talking about what I want, right? I'm talking about what I think is the reality, right? I want to make sure to make that difference always. So it's not about what I want. What is it, you know? When you also saying it's high. What do you think is a more reasonable number?
I think at around 50 or 100, then you have a chance of getting at least 2 offers.
Okay, great. So Ramuyu has a prior that says from A all the way to B is 50. Let me just take it at the higher number at 100. Need not to B, sorry, all the way to D. Need 10 items of A to get 2 items of D. Is that right, Ramuyu?
Yes.
And so that means overall you're saying a 2% likelihood of success. Our original, we can say Idris's prior is 0.2 by 0.2 by 0.05 is 0.2% likelihood of success. So yeah, that makes sense. We differ by a magnitude by a single magnitude, right? So how do we know who's more likely to be right or what the actual answer is? Yeah, great answer. So I've got 3 different answers: Fermi experimentation, Fermi approximation, and then the following 2 for me are really the same thing. We try and we experiment. Yes, trying is the same as experimenting. Kevin, Fermi approximation will give me another approximation, and I want to use it for things that are even bigger values than this. If I don't care about the difference between 1 and 10, or I should say, if I don't care about the difference between 1 and 5 or 5 and 10, then I want to use a Fermi approximation. In this case, I care about difference between 1 and 5, right? Yeah, so great. So we experiment. So all of you, go do your job hunting and just keep track. And as you keep track, you'll find out what's actually your likelihood of success. And you'll figure out how hard it is for you to get your first interview, how hard it is for you to get your second interview, how hard it is for you to get your job offer. Each thing you do will be different. You might realize that the process I've laid out, you can bypass. You can skip the 5% likelihood of getting your first interview by, instead of applying directly through the front door, you can network. Then you have to ask yourself, how likely is it for me to ask somebody to make an introduction to actually then go and get an interview, right? And you might find the likelihood of getting an introduction to an interview is way higher than the likelihood of applying online to get an interview. So what I'm asking you is not to believe my likelihoods or believe my percentages. I don't care if you believe any numbers I give you. What I'm asking you is to use the methodology, right? I'm asking you to use Bayes' theorem to figure out how it goes for you and to improve your process. I'm asking you to practice data science on your application processes. If you don't practice data science on your application processes, I worry about when you finally get that job. I want you to use data science as much as you can, both because it'll actually make it easier for you when you're in your interviews. If you can tell them, I use data science to get this interview, they'll love it. And also because it will make your life better. You will actually be less stressed out if you're like, look, I applied to 20 jobs. I really thought I was going to get that job. I didn't get it, but that's okay, because I know that the likelihood is that, you know, I'm going to get only 2 jobs out of 100. So just got to get 80 more in. And then even after that, you're going to know the gambler's fallacy. Well, it's a good thing Ken said you also need luck. I think of luck in really just one way. I think of luck in the accumulation of all the factors that you have no control over. So luck is the accumulation of all the factors you have no control over. And at the end of the day, those factors will play a huge part in what happens in your life. And when I'm trying to get something done, I'm not going to focus on those. I'm going to focus on what I have control over. If I have influence or control over something, that's where I'm putting my energy. And then when I want to think back on why I was successful, I want to remember my luck, because those are the reasons why I got to be successful and other people didn't get to be successful. So the reason why I'm participating and doing this training with you is because a lot of the things that influence my success in data science, you don't have access to. That's my luck. And then I didn't have access to this. So this is definitely not as good as some of the things I have. I'm not that great a teacher, but you know, it's something. So my hope is that I've increased your luck just a little bit. But when you're actually going through the process, focus on what you can influence. Don't focus on what you cannot influence, right? Focus on what you can influence. Ken, does that resonate for you?
Yeah.
All right.
I usually view luck as a different thing. Just like I usually tell myself I'm usually really lucky. Just luck. Like you think luck follows me everywhere I go.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Ken. I like to think of it for myself more as like conditions of happiness. I have more than enough things in my life to be happy. And if I take the time to notice what I already have in my life that brings me happiness, that makes my life so much better. And yeah, and then everything else is icing on the cake, you know? It just makes the cake a little bit sweeter, but the cake is still great. So for me, I sort of separate those two, but I appreciate you sharing that, Ken. But yeah, Kevin, that's exactly right. I'm talking about the circle of influence. Focus on your circle of influence. Do not focus on your circle of concern. For everyone else, let me explain this concept really quickly. Imagine that all the things in the world that you can influence. Nahom's laughing. Nahom, you know I'm supposed to have left like 20 minutes ago, but I'm still here explaining another concept. All right, so imagine everything in the world you can influence is in this circle. Give me a thumbs up if you can imagine it. Great. Got a few thumbs up. Wonderful. Now there's a different circle, which is all the things that you think about, the things you care about, things you're worried about, things you want to have happen. We call that your circle of concerns. For most people, the things that you can influence are part of your circle of concern. Does that make sense? So they'll have the same center. And for most people, the circle of concern is actually bigger than the circle of influence. Looks like that. Does that make sense? Give me a thumbs up if this resonates for you. If your attention is focused on all this stuff, what'll happen if your attention if you keep thinking about what you're concerned about and keep forgetting about what you're able to influence, Remember, things you can influence are how you spend your time. That's the biggest thing you can influence. The things you say, the kinds of things you say, when you remember to not speak, because maybe you're angry and you choose to not speak, it's a great opportunity to influence the environment you're in and influence your own experience of life. But most of us, instead of focusing on what we can influence, we focus on what we're concerned about, what the other person said, right? What we cannot control. So when we do that, we actually expand. We force our circle of influence to get bigger, our circle of concern to get bigger. This is why our circle of concern is so large to begin with. We keep focusing on what we're concerned about, so it keeps getting bigger. We keep thinking about it. We keep becoming more concerned with it, with all these items, and we get concerned with the tangents. Think about the environment. Thinking about the environment makes us think about recycling. If we think about our own involvement in recycling, we increase our influence. But if we think about, hey, my neighbor doesn't recycle, then we increase our concerns, right? And then we think my city doesn't recycle. And suddenly we think about everybody else and what we can't influence again, right? So we expand that circle of concern and it gets bigger and bigger. And our influence ends up getting smaller because the amount of time we put on that, the effort we put on that decreases. So the recommendation is to flip that. Do not focus on your circle of concern. Focus on your circle of influence. And what will happen is your circle of influence will start to increase. And your circle of concerns will start to decrease. And you'll start to have a much better future circle of influence. It'll get bigger and start to actually get closer to what you're concerned about. And when you look at the most powerful people in the world, the people that we always talk about on the news and the media everywhere, their circle of concern is actually smaller than their circle of influence. Oh God, how wonderful it would be if my president was concerned about as many things as I'm concerned about. But you know what's sort of scary is if he was, his influence would actually not be as big, right? And that's a bizarre thing to keep in mind. And for me, the reminder is that when we become very influential, we have to then refocus on the circle of concern. But until you're influential, focus on your circle of influence. You want those to sort of overlap. Cool. Thanks, Ken, for that applause. Yes, all right. We did it. I feel like that was a good use of time. Yeah, I think with that, so we're likely to not have a session next week. If we do, I will message all of you in the Slack. I think actually let's just make the decision as a group. Actually, I'm not going to make it as a group. I'm going to make it unilaterally. I'm going to let you know today is our last session. And what I would like from all of you, if you are interested, send me your 2-year plan. For those of you who send me a 2-year plan that inspires me, I will happily have another session with all of you. And it'll be a one-on-one session. So it'll take time for me to schedule those. And I might do them over the course of the next few months. But for anyone who sends me a 2-year plan, I'll have a one-on-one session with you. And we can talk about your plan. We can talk about something else. Talk about whatever you want. But we'll have a 1-hour one-on-one session. So that is your optional homework if you so choose to take it. And I hope you all stay in touch. I hope you add me on LinkedIn. I hope you add me on Facebook and just let me know how your life is. On Facebook. Awesome. This is my Facebook. This is my LinkedIn. And then this is my email. I'm saying goodbye for now. I don't really use my Twitter. Ken, can you try that link? See if it works. My Reddit account is blocked, Kevin. I don't know what happened. So I must have said something at some point. Okay, and then yeah, if you want to follow me on Twitter, I think it's the same thing. I think I just am using Twitter. I'm just using MVC, or I think I'm using both MVC Daisy and my Mircha. So I think I'm on both of those, but I'm not using it that actively. And a lot of the stuff right now is very political that I like, so I'm not really posting too much. But yeah, Facebook's probably better. If you want to follow my teaching page on Facebook, that's actually probably we're going to see more updates. You'll see some articles from me. Oh, man, I've got a lot of links now that I think about it. Oh, you're in, okay, it's pending. Thanks, Ken, for letting me know. Feel free to email me if I don't get back to you on anything. If you add me somewhere and I forget to add you, or I just don't see it, just email me. Anyone want to say closing thoughts before we leave?
I don't believe that's you on your LinkedIn profile picture. Two different people.
I need to update that photo. That's from a really long time ago.
I'm like, is this Idris really? Nah.
A very long time ago. Yep. Yeah, that's fair. Anyone else want to say closing thoughts? Thanks, Stephanie. Thanks, David. It's been really great having both of you here too. It's been great having all of you. Nahom, Kevin, thank you for keeping your video open to the end. Yes. I really appreciate that. If you want, you give me your email address and I'll let you know if I come up with an idea for another sessions that are similar to this. Wow, Kevin, that is an impressive compliment. That's funny. All right, everybody. Yeah, you can send your mails there in the chat, Ida, or you can email me directly, whatever you want to do. Yeah, all of you make Mondays fun for me too. Yeah, you know, if you add your emails to the group document, that would be good too. Whatever feels good. You can add it to the group document. You can email me. Whatever feels good. All right, everyone. I will close us out with breakout rooms. I'll let all of you hang out together. And I will leave after that. So I think we usually do the breakout rooms for like 15 or 30 minutes, but you all decide how long you want to do the breakout rooms for. So I will let you enjoy those. All right. Bye. Rahel, I just moved you to breakout room 1. So if you want to go there, you can.